Alright, hello again guys. Back with another AD Talks and 3 guests again. Although one of them is disappeared for a moment or two.
He's getting coffee.
Yeah. Alright, hello again. Oh, hold on. Whoops. Back with another AD Talks and 3. There we go, fixed that. My sound from the stream was going through. Guess we'll have to listen to me saying hello twice, but whatever. Yeah, welcome back. We're going to talk in crime and lawful roleplay today. And we have Cass, Heather, and Admiral, because I always forget his elf name.
Selnarin.
Selnarin, that's it. Normally we start with introductions, how you got into roleplay, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, we can start with Cass.
Alright, so hello everyone. I started roleplay somewhere around the middle of Mists of Pandaria, if I remember correctly. Just about when the third raid was announced. Before I started WoW or World of Warcraft pretty near to that as well. And reason why I started on a role-playing server was because I was quite interested to see what that was about. It's the first time I heard that something like that existed in an MMORPG, actually. So initially I didn't think I would roleplay, but I kind of got into it. And I started with human roleplay, and I think the first year was pretty random, just random encounters with everyone. And then I tried a guild and started into evil roleplay was the first choice there.
What kind of evil?
Very evil. It was a culty, dark environment.
Goddamn cultists.
Yeah, it was cultist things, and it was fun. We had our little area and so forth. It was a good learning experience, and I think I spent around 8 months there, and then that disbanded, unfortunately. Then I went over back to the random city roleplay. Then I did some soldier roleplay, and after that I tried a little bit of Pandaren, a little bit of Night Elf, and all kinds of things. But in the end, I decided on Human Mage, and I roleplay 2 Human Mages right now. I have also started a guild over a year and a half ago now, which is called Dalaran Intelligence, which is a Kirin Tor guild, and that's where I am now, right?
Alright. Well, welcome aboard. Heather, how about you tell us a little bit about your RP experiences and how you got into it?
Hello guys, the name is Heather. I go under the name of Heather Scarlet Hunt. I'm a Night Elf Hunter. I play a Night Elf Hunter, and I started role-playing really not that long ago. I started playing it out, I think, the end of Legion. And it is mostly because I was for like the whole time I played the game I'm playing I was a raider. But as raiding was kind of dead for myself, I was looking for something else to do, and I heard about role playing from other friends, and I was like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna look into it. I made a void elf, and that was a nice start to start with. I mean, it was kind of hard to roleplay what I made sometimes, but it worked out. But yeah, now I am on my Night of Hunter, who you can now probably see on the screen as well.
Yeah, I'm just running around in circles at the moment. Alright, our Admiral is back, I heard him.
Yeah, I am indeed. Hello.
Do you want to introduce yourself again? For
Oh,
anyone who
always.
hasn't, you know?
I'm never finished talking about
Are you
myself.
still the same person as you were last time?
Yeah, how are you?
I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit saucy today, so I might go with an entirely different persona. No, I play a whole wealth of characters. I've been role playing for the last 10 years on WoW, and when I say it out loud, it makes me feel really bad about my life choices. But yeah, no, I play Celarna Shell primarily. She's a spy slash fixer in Theolin's criminal guild Oath of Silver. I also play Theolin's brother-in-law, Carolyn, who is less criminally and more of a general fucking soldier of the horde.
Pain in the
Slash,
butt.
I was gonna say pain in Theolin's ass. And yeah, that's pretty much me. I've been in Oath of Silver for most of its existence, and somehow Katie has still not killed me. So yeah,
Alright. Well, let's dive straight into it. They already know I've broken it up into like different categories and then
Disclaimer,
with-
viewers, this one could be a long one today.
yeah, it could be a little long. It
Depends.
depends if
Depends
we
how
don't
wordy
get
everyone
the same answers, just drinking the problems away. But yeah, it might be a little bit longer. So let's dive straight into it. I mean, what sort of roleplay can you expect with criminal roleplay basically? And no, I say we normally start with an order, but then people dive in. But for the sake of it now, Cass, you can start. What sort of roleplay can you expect with criminal roleplay?
Right, so when we say criminal, we mean simply law breaking, right? Not inherently evil.
No.
Could be just criminal in general. I think it's very difficult to say what to expect. It's pretty much like asking what to expect of any kind of roleplay, actually. There's a lot of ways to portray criminal RP, and personally, I haven't really found any, let's say, extreme oddity about that particular topic. I mean, sometimes it's been very good, sometimes it's been all right, and sometimes it's been not so good. But I think that's been the case with most roleplay. However, I think it's a little more difficult to pull off on the same level as lawful roleplay would be. So that tends to maybe skew the statistics a little bit compared to what to expect from lawful roleplays, let's say.
Alright. Heather. What do you really expect with criminal roleplay?
Yeah, what can I? The thing is, I would say the same as what Cass would say, but if I look at certain roles people can play, I look at people like thieves, for example, or people who blackmail others to make them do something that they will not give reward for. That's my look upon the criminality in roleplay. But what can I say about it? I just have not yet seen it that much.
Alright. What about our Admiral?
you've already forgotten my name and my character's name, haven't
Look,
you?
it's elf name, okay?
Yeah, criminal roleplay it's really a lot more varied than a lot of people would think. You can do a huge amount with it beyond the usual. I'm gonna say this as nice as I can. Shite that you'd see of people skulking in corners, looking shady. I've seen over the years of doing it, people role playing con artists, people role playing loan sharks, people role playing drug dealers, smugglers. There's so much you can do with it, and if you're ambitious with it, like Katie is to her own detriment, you can tie it into so much. You can tie your criminal roleplay into lawful roleplay through double dealing and blackmail, and it's so much variety and scope for what you can do if you have the commitment and the network of people to do it with. So yeah, you can expect a huge deal.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Do you guys dabble in both criminal or lawful, or do you have a preferred side in the takes of these things? Steve, I know you have a preferred side, but...
Yeah. Cass, should I go on that one first again?
Okay. Personal preference for me would always be a darker side. I seem to be more creative when it comes to darker scenarios. most of the events I host have a quite dark twist, and I'm quite a huge fan of horror and so forth as well. So it kind of aligns to roleplay some character like that. So ideally, that would be the choice. But at the moment, my roleplay is quite lawful. Maybe a little chaotic lawful, but still on the right side of the law, I would say.
Fair enough. What about Heather?
Yeah, to be honest, I think for now I'll be saying lawful, as I've not yet tried too much get criminal. As like I said, I'm not that long into roleplay yet, but I do think I will give it a try one day.
You should. It's good crack. If it's done decently, it's good fun.
Oh yeah, I can completely understand that. I can also completely believe that.
Alright. Sanarin? There we go, I said it.
Hey, we did it! Awesome. Wow, I feel like a real boy now.
You are a real boy. You have a name.
Somewhat shockingly, I know you may be surprised to hear this, as being part of a long-term roleplay guild that is based around criminal activities. I prefer the criminal side of things, because I think that this you could do a lot that you wouldn't normally see in roleplay and in fiction, in fantasy fiction particularly, when you're roleplaying a criminal in a setting like this, because there's like all this magic and madness and shit going on around the world, and trying to tie that into your roleplay presents an almost unique challenge that you don't really have on the lawful side. You're a lawful person, you're a lawful character, you're a good guy, you go out, you fight the bad thing. That's cool, that's grand. How do you, as a criminal role player, you then have the option of, for example, the current storyline based on the war between two factions, capitalizing on that for your own gain? You know, are you going to try and deal to both sides of cross-faction roleplay? Are you going to have any particular investment in the war? Are you going to avoid it entirely and write your own stories separate from that? I just think there's a lot more that you can do with it in certain storylines.
Yeah.
Conversely, when it comes to something like the last expansion where it was against the Legion, criminal roleplay is almost is harder to do in that sense, because it's very hard to do criminal roleplay based around a demonic invasion, because you're not really going to be selling drugs to the demons, because they are not very good at paying
You can't
their
really
debt.
cross-faction trade with demons.
Yeah. Sargeras' cocaine habits, he has his own suppliers. He doesn't need us. Fucking cat addict. Right, so that would be. I generally prefer criminal roleplay as a short answer.
Yeah, well, I'll answer that for the sake of it as well. I have to say criminal roleplay as well, although I do occasionally bounce to law for RP. This character right here on the screen at the moment is in a criminal guild, but she is more of a lawful character.
She's a terrible criminal.
She is a terrible. Let's say she's a terrible pirate. But she kind of validates it by playing the sort of Robin Hood role, where she robs from the rich and gives to the poor.
Still technically a criminal.
Yeah. But that's that's her
The
validation.
the okay kind of criminal, the criminal that we like.
You'd still invite him to dinner.
Yeah. Just not if you were wealthy. You might check your silverware at the end of the night, yeah?
Hide all your gold. But yeah, criminal roleplay tends to open more gateways to RP in my experience. So, I mean, obviously Meraki will probably say criminal, but maybe not.
I've been,
No.
I've been doing criminal roleplay for about 7 years now.
She's tired of
We've
it.
been running out for almost
She
6.
actually hates it. She just
I actually hate it. I actually hate it, honestly, yeah. No, to be fair, we did do a stint. We had a stint in the middle because there's criminal roleplay on Horde side is actually pretty good, but there's a dire lack of actual lawful roleplay. No, there's plenty of lawful guilds, but like lawmaker type people. So we for a stint in the middle of a couple of years ago, I think it was, Steve. We tried to make like an offshoot guild of like cops basically,
You're breaking up a
but it
bit.
didn't really work.
That should be fine.
Yeah.
Because we do not have the immense manpower required to run 2 separate guilds.
Yeah. And even to run 2 different like sides to the same guild, it wasn't feasible.
Yeah.
You need numbers that it's hard to get in a Horde side guild.
Yeah. What's our next question? What are some of your experiences with it then? Again, we'll start with Cass, then we'll go with Heather, and then we'll go with Solnarin. I did it.
Yay!
So experiences with criminal roleplay have been pretty much all over the place. I think in general, when you think about criminal roleplay, is the more you go into the darker aspects of it, the harder it is to pull it off. But I have had very mixed experiences in general. I've had experiences that I value to this day long ago, and even to this day or today, I have experiences with criminal role players that are very, very good. We even keep in connected to some people who have reached out to either me personally or the guild through some kind of shady activity that's criminal or borderline criminal. So there's been definitely some good experiences. I would say I've had more good experiences than bad. And I think the bad experiences don't really have to do with the fact that it's been criminal roleplay, but it's just like it's like a deviation. It happens in any kind of roleplay.
Yeah. RP is a scale of quality. You get that in any aspect of it, and in any faction, and in any guild, really.
And criminal roleplay becomes very interesting also from like a Kirin Tor perspective, because then you kind of have the whole magic of it. And what is like criminal magic then? Is it just, fell magic, or is it abusing magic? When are you abusing magic? Stuff like that. So you have people doing, you have people walking really interesting lines among mages as well on the server that you can't quite say if that would be criminal or not, right? Because there's no real law definition. But it's very interesting
concept.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see what lines people are willing to walk and kind of remain in the balance. Not really per se admitting that, yeah, this is criminal, but more like it's controversial or debatable. That's also been very interesting experiences with that. And then it makes you wonder, like, well, would this person be criminal in the eyes of someone or not? But definitely, to answer the question briefly, definitely mostly good, I would say. People I've had interacted with.
Heather?
Have we lost Heather?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, what my experience would be is I have very little experience. I can honestly say. I did have some experience where I was not really how to say it good. Where I was like role playing with a thief who stole something from my character. It was really dear to her. That was a kind of a unexpected something that happened, but I did try roleplay with it, go with the flow. And the other thing I have experience with would be with my void elf, who was being controlled by the void. She was she was controlled by the void, and the void made her place a spell on the other person's mind to mind control her, which was not really accepted by anyone else.
You could play an interesting aspect with that, the void and stuff, telling you to do the bad deeds.
Yeah, it was it was kind of interesting as well. At the same time as my character was being controlled, and she was also still in her own control. But when the void did things, it was like a completely different person, and she did not remember or whatever know anything that the void did in her place.
Alright. We'll try to keep these quick as well, because we're already halfway through and not halfway through the questions even.
We're near halfway through the questions.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Alright, so Naren, there we go.
Yay! So my experiences with criminal roleplay are, again, have been roleplaying for 10 years now. A lot of it has been on the side of log, so I only started roleplaying really criminal stuff since Oath came about, really. So I've seen it from both sides over the years. Everything from people trying to pickpocket my character to the extreme end of the scale where somebody just tries to randomly murder your character in the street. And that goes to something I think will be coming to later on in the questions, if we get around to them, of like the level of what you expect from criminals and what they should expect from you, and so on and so forth. But most of my interaction with the shadier side of the law has been very positive. At least it has been once I joined them. I think there's a huge issue for a lot of criminal role players in how they interact with the good guys, because everybody wants to win, and if you're playing the bad guy, you generally have to be aware that you might get the occasional little victory, but eventually you're gonna lose because you're the bad guy. And this is a heroic fantasy setting. You're not gonna win. You know.
Yeah, I think we'll get into that soon. I always have some strong opinions on that sometimes. I mean, do you want to, as a group, list us some pros and cons that come with criminal roleplay? Like,
Yeah.
what are the advantages of it? What are the disadvantages of doing it?
I don't think there's any distinct advantage or disadvantage to role playing a particular sort of legal or illegal or criminal or whatever. I don't think there's necessarily advantages or disadvantages to it. I think you can explore different themes. Again, as I think I mentioned in my first question, like the various concepts that you couldn't really explore blackmail from the side of the blackmailer if you were in a lawful guild. You theoretically could, but it's harder to pull off, and being in a criminal guild lends itself to that much better. Again, double dealing, cross faction, not as easy to do if you're playing a good guy. That sort of thing. So I think the additional options that you wouldn't normally have is a big pro. A con would be just the sort of stuff I just mentioned there, where people have very different ideas of how interactions between criminal and non-criminal should go, how they should end, what the conflict between the two should look like, if there is any.
Yeah.
Sometimes even between criminals and other criminals.
Yes, that is also a issue that is definitely a thing, because everybody wants to be the biggest badass in the playing field. Everyone wants to be
Too
the
late.
tough guy.
I've taken that title. All right. What about you two, Cass and Heather? What would be some of your pros and cons towards doing criminal roleplay?
Well, I think if one would just see it from like a completely, zoomed out, neutral perspective, when you're making a character, you have a pretty good idea in the world in Warcraft. What's criminal, what's evil, what's good, what's lawful. So there shouldn't be a difference. But the problem is this, that it's a hero's game, right? And the more you start to go towards the criminal side and maybe even towards the evil side, the more sort of boundaries start to appear around what you could or should be doing. For instance, there's all the RP hubs, major cities, both the Horde and Alliance, they're inherently, quotation marks, good. I mean, at some point, orcs were considered a little evil, right, in the early Warcraft games, but...
Oh, just a little. Yeah,
but now it's kind of... Yeah, now it's kind of turned. Now everyone's good. Everyone's paragons. Yeah, you have Sylvanas and this hope happening now and then, but you already have Horde objecting to that and stuff. So the kind of good of both sides is always portraying, and then the role-playing environment for people who want to go very far into the criminal starts becoming limited because there's no role-play hub for it. I think there would be a lot more criminal and evil role players if one of the factions was inherently evil and remained so, because then you would have that whole world of it.
You also, I think, have the issue that if, depending on, like you said, just how far into it you go. Like if you run up the street and you pickpocket someone, okay, they might be pissed off. You might turn some heads and whatever else. And you might get a slap in the wrist and things like that. But if you run up and you stab someone to death, more people are going to care about that. It's going to attract more attention. You're going to, as in turn, get a lot more blowback from that. Like people are just not going to be happy with that. If you try to blow up buildings and things like that, you're going to get a lot more people against it because as you say, the general gist of the community is lawful good. So
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
obliged to give a crap if you go around blowing things up and killing people. And
Yeah, you
then
can't
that
swim
makes
against
your,
the stream. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that makes your roleplay very limited then.
So I think like criminal roleplay, when you're making criminal aspects to your character, you can use it as a spice. But you have to know that the more you add from that dark side of the world, the more boundaries might occur. So that's something. If you're careful with that, you can make a very nice environment for yourself. But if you go too far, then you always risk like isolation. If you're a cult, you have to be somewhere. You can't be in Stormwind. You have to be somewhere in the forest somewhere. And if you're lucky, there's a guild there. And if you're not, you might get bored with it. So it's more from that like playing aspect that the boundaries from evil roleplay or unlawful roleplay start to show. Whereas you can be as good as you want, you'll always have the same options, right? So I think that's a con, if anything, for criminal roleplay that I would point out at least.
Yeah.
All right. Heather, do you want to add anything on top of that?
Well, what he said was already pretty clear. But yeah, I would give my pros and cons will be like the pros. That it could turn into a fine piece of roleplay, maybe to be left at a later time, if it is done right, of course.
All right.
And also, if the roleplay is accepted by people, or also the victim who is being how to say it targeted for a criminal roleplay, it can also turn into really good character progression. If you ask me, though.
Yeah.
And yeah, for cons, I would say if it is not accepted, the person who is role playing as a criminal. Yeah, how to say it? That is.
Oh, whoops.
The thing is, what can happen then is that it can escalate into a really bad thing sometimes. Sometimes, yeah. But it also can happen that it then can turn out really bad for the character who is roleplaying the criminal. That is what my view would be on criminal roleplay pros and cons.
All right. Let's move on to how would you advise someone approaching it then? In what way would you approach criminal roleplay if it were you, or if you were telling someone new to do so? We'll start with Cass again.
Well, if I had to do it now again, I would definitely not do it the first time. Just jump into this murderous evil stuff, because that's tricky. If you want, it depends really how criminal you want to be. Like, if you just want to have if you just want to not pay taxes, I don't think you have to consider much more than you would normally. Then you just focus on your character. But I think are you asking what I would do, or how I would approach the problem of wanting to be a criminal roleplayer?
How would you approach it as a new person coming into this aspect of roleplay?
Okay, with the knowledge I have now, I would probably put down some, let's say, theoretical boundaries that come with the decisions I make. So I would try to keep it so that I can be in many places, that I'm not too intrusive, that my roleplay doesn't depend on being intrusive or solely on interactions with others. For instance, if you're a murderer, you depend on people being killed or NPCs being killed, which you'll likely be DMing for yourself, So I wouldn't go that far, maybe. But, thief maybe, or some kind of shady dealer would work. Maybe some kind of, if you like mage or something like that, you could go a bit of a controversial mage, someone who's starting to look into the exotic parts of magic, right? The no-nos, and maybe some fell. But I would use it as a spice. I would not base the core on the fact that I'm a criminal. That's it. if I didn't know that I had a good guild to go for it, for instance, or that there's a good hub for it, then I would consider it. But I'd have to do that research. I don't know how that is right now. I remember that scene years ago, but I haven't visited it for a while, so I don't really know how it is now. But those are the things I would at least consider, if that answers it.
All right.
Mm.
What about you, Heather?
Yeah, the thing is, I have not really experience of approaching it. Okay, I think I've been asking around if that thing what I did with my void elf was to be looked at as a criminal. I got the answer yes. But yeah, to be honest, if you really want to roleplay as a beginner a criminal, I would say try to yeah, to prepare something for what you want, what you don't like whisper the person you want to place the victim, or maybe try to get to fill it into your TRP or your my roleplay, so people know what you want to do. And if you don't do these things, people will probably not people will not be prepared, probably, I think. And these kind of role plays can escalate into big things, like out of hand.
So you mean like communication between
Yeah.
other players?
Yeah.
All right. So Narin, that's it. I did it again.
Yeah, every time it's like he's so close to forgetting. You can stick with Steve.
All right,
Might
let's
be
go with
easier.
Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, regardless of whether you're a beginner role player or an experienced role player, whether it's your first time role playing criminal or you've done it before, my advice is always to take a look around what's out in the community, look at the forums, look at the Argent archives, see who's out there, and make contact with them, because it's boring as shit to do it on your own. So you might as well try and build contacts with people out of character and in character before you really get going. You know, I say it's boring as shit. It could be enjoyable to run a little card shark game or a little con job on your own in the street, but to really get long-term viable roleplay out of it, you want to be doing it with other people. Again, putting stuff in your TRP about it, it's definitely an option, but there's an element of surprise that can also help. And that the best way to avoid things escalating is to make sure there's communication out of character. That doesn't necessarily need to be a pre-warning in your TRP that you are a criminal, because sometimes it can be a nice surprise to have a conversation with somebody and then for them to walk away from the conversation and go, shit, I got something, or something to that effect. So that would be, so yeah. So the core of that is, my advice is look for other people out of character, make contact, have a plan in place for how you're going to, for what you want to do with this criminal behavior. Are you just doing a crime for the sake of doing a crime? Do you have a plan for this character? Do they have a goal in mind? Why are they a criminal? All these sort of things will influence how you go about things that you do and what you're willing to do.
All right.
So that as with any
Gives it
character,
more depth and
yeah,
development.
exactly.
As well.
More depth to it. As with any character, basically, have an idea of where you want this character to go and why they're doing the things they do. You know, otherwise they're just a caricature. They're just a two-dimensional caricature of a criminal rather than an actual interesting criminal.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. I'm all bummed up, so I am forgetting how to speak.
Just quick advice from me would be keep it simple if you're diving straight into it new. I mean, criminal roleplay can come with its drama as well sometimes, and if you keep it simple, like, you know, pickpocketing, you just brush past someone, yoink their coin pouch. It's simpler
Exactly.
than running up to someone and stabbing them.
If you're new to criminal role playing, you're new to the game or anything like that, you don't have to pull off being Sherlock Holmes type mastermind, or what's his Moriarty type mastermind right off of the bat. You can start small.
Yeah.
Build up to it.
Keep it
And
simple.
it's cooler like that, really. You'll have development of your person becoming more experienced with their, you know, line of work and becoming better at their craft, basically, which is always cool.
And there is a lot of scope for the person who starts out doing fairly minor crimes and ends up on a sort of slippery fucking slope
Yeah.
into nasty, nasty shit, whether because they are doing it because of debt. Again, it's just all story possibilities. There's so many ways that you can go with it.
Yeah. So, as someone pointed out, criminal roleplay is different to villainous one, and by that it also becomes a more enriching experience if you can interact with players on a more personal level. Civilians, lawful. Do you feel it relies too heavily on interacting with other players, or do you feel there can also be fulfilling the need for roleplay in that area can be fulfilled through events?
I'm gonna jump in and that's that one, even though we're doing it in turns, and I'm like fuck the system because I'm a criminal role player, and
God.
that's just how I roll.
Got a badass over here.
Yeah, fucking hell. I think any roleplay is very much dependent on interacting with other people. I think it's not just criminal roleplay. Anything you can do with events, you can do it off screen, you can do it within your own guild, but to make it viable, to make it last, any roleplay needs to reach out beyond your immediate circle, your immediate guild, particularly when it's relatively niche roleplay, like for example, criminal roleplay.
All right. Cass or Heather?
I'll go last this time.
All right. Heather, do you feel like it relies too heavily on interacting with players when it comes to criminal roleplay, or do you think it can also, work with events?
Well, honestly, I don't think I can really I can really give a good answer on this because I've not yet really played myself as a real criminal role player. That's
Alright.
just, yeah.
That's
I'm
fair.
sorry.
No, that's fair. Well, Cass, it seems you're quick to answer.
Okay, so I think that it really depends if it's if let's assume that it's the core of your character, like it's a very important part, because you could technically use it as a spice. You could say, all right, my character doesn't pay taxes. He's cool like that,
Yeah.
And that's like a spicy thing. Then you're not so much dependent on that fact. If you're going to make a thief who's a professional thief, this is his living, then I think you kind of become dependent because you kind of need people to rob or do some thieving in a way that's role play, right? And the two options you have is to either, all right, if you're in a thieving guild, maybe you have some kind of event where there's an NPC and you have some kind of cool system where you can steal stuff. But if you're alone, I think you might be quite dependent on it. And I think it's very easy that it happens to you. Maybe you don't think about it when you're making the character, but it can happen that and if you are, I think it's probably not the best thing if that happens, that you're very dependent on. So it's very likely if you're not careful.
All right. There are times, when, criminal guilds or players don't often last long when they, come in this mindset of bringing a more criminal aspect to roleplay. Why do you feel that's the case? What actually makes for successful criminal roleplay?
Give and take. So much give and take. It's a huge thing to not. If you're gonna play a criminal, like I mentioned this earlier on, you're not going to be the ultimate victor in any conflict. Maybe on the smaller little things you have, like you'll have little wins, but if you're setting out to be the crime lord of the horde or the alliance and to control it all, you're not going to have a good time because it's not an achievable goal. You're never going to control everything. You're never going to be the fucking kingpin of Warcraft. And you're not going to take down all the good guy guilds. You're not going to win. You're going to be a nice antagonist. You can also be a protagonist, because just because you're breaking the law doesn't necessarily mean you're a prick in every sense. But if you're setting yourself up against lawful guilds, ultimately the expectation reasonably will be that if they can, the law is going to win.
So what you're saying is you fought the law and law won.
The law won every fucking time. Every fucking time.
All right. What about Cass or Heather? If you any of you got an answer for that one?
Sure. Yeah. So I think if you're on the criminal side, there's a much higher requirement on the platform for your guild. If you're not careful and you create, let's say, a cult, you have to have content that doesn't necessarily require you to find good guilds or interact with good guilds, and is still satisfying in a way. Because if you don't, you don't want to end up in the situation that we have to win or you have to win, and that can't be a big part of your roleplay. And I think if you're making a good-natured guild, that requirement is less because a lot of things function more easily that way. If you're very, very dark, for instance, you're limited maybe. You can't be in the role-playing hubs. You can't do the things that lawful people could do. And then it brings a stronger requirement on the guilds and on the people heading these guilds and on the people in the guilds, because if you're not very creative, you end up mostly just being, talking in somewhere far away, and that can quickly get tedious. But then on the other hand, when you're interacting with other guilds, then if you choose that way, then you have this whole, it's been mentioned, problem of, well, what will the outcome be and how will this follow you? To what degree? And if you're lucky, the two sides are very agreeable and they can come up with something interesting. But I think then you can get away with it. But I think it's that difficulty that basically tips over those scales, I think.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. It's always an upstream swim. The further you go towards criminal and dark roleplay, you're always going against what the factions inherently are portrayed as. And this is what adds that extra difficulty, which I think tips it over.
All right.
Unrealistic expectations, I think, is the biggest thing that kills criminal guilds. It's the expectation that they will be able to just jump into the game and roleplay crime and roleplay mugging random people. It requires so much consent and consideration of other players if you're roleplaying a criminal that it can actually be quite off-putting once you actually get stuck into it. Because if you just run up to people randomly and /Y gunshot them in the middle of fucking Stormwind or Silvermoon or Orgrimmar, you're gonna get told to go fuck yourself. Reasonably. I recall the one incident that my fiance had in Silvermoon a few years back, where someone randomly shot at her in the street in the middle of Silvermoon because she was a Blood Knight, and that kind of stuff. It's never going to fly.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to roll with that. That's not fun for anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, unrealistic expectations of other people is a big downfall of criminal guilds, I think.
All right.
Can I answer this one?
Yeah, sure. No, you're not allowed.
Be silent, woman. The men are talking.
Oh my word, you did not.
Hey, that wasn't me. Okay, that was our guest.
It's all right. I'll beat him later.
She will.
I think a lot of the problem with criminal guilds as well is that it's a very cool, I think it's a very cool concept, and I think a lot of people, especially remember a lot of younger characters, think it would be really awesome to play a criminal and to be a badass and all that kind of thing. And a lot of people think, oh, I'll make a criminal guild, and because it's a really cool idea, loads of people will flock to join it. Everyone, when you're creating a guild, you think it's a really good idea. You wouldn't be creating it if you didn't think it was a good idea. And you expect people to join it. But with a criminal guild, you're appealing to a very small niche market within the actual community of people that are interested in playing criminals rather than heroes. And even then, you're also in competition with any other criminal guilds that could be out there. So you've got a very small potential pool for recruits.
Yeah.
And I think when you create a guild, you expect to get recruits. at a much higher rate than you will actually get, especially with the niche concept. And at the start, it can be very, very hard to build up that activity. And it can, like when we first started Oath, we had 4 players. There was 4 people in the guild. And if it hadn't been for the fact that those 4 people were on all the time and doing all the things and being very visible and, you know, combined with the fact that they were great quality role players, it would never have taken off because there's not that visibility. There's not that, oh, people don't see you doing stuff and things like that. So it can be very demotivating and disheartening at the start because you're so small and it's so hard to get those people and to create that snowball effect that makes it bigger. And that can put a lot of people off, and you have to create a lot of content. Like, I can't remember who it was, but because your voices are very similar. Someone else said that because you're not relying as much on the general trend of the hero arc of the story, you have to create a lot more of your own content as well. So there's a lot more burden in that regard. And if you're not very careful, I was very careful with Oath that I made it very particularly so that we would not be ousted from the hubs and different things like that, because I knew that if we did, we'd end up, you know, exiled, and in 100% of content creation would land on my shoulders, and I absolutely didn't want that. So I very carefully tailored our concept to suit what I was able to do. But I think a lot of guilds don't do that. Like those guilds that want to do the cultist thing, and then they end up getting exiled, and that can be really, really hard when you have the responsibility for 100% of the roleplay creation by yourself, and you're locked out of those hubs, which limits the amount of guilds and the amount of people that you can interact with. And, you know, it can get very, very difficult to manage it logistically, as well as communication, and the fact that, you know, a lot of people have had bad experiences with people in criminal regards and tend to treat it a bit warily and things like that. So there's a lot of mountains to climb to get criminal guilds going. And I think once you're like 3 months into that and it feels like it's been a slog for 3 months and you feel like you've had no new recruits and you feel like everything's constantly work, a lot of people just say, you know, this is not working, I'm going to go do something else.
Slash white gunshot.
Jeez, maybe I should have made this one just criminal roleplay. God.
Yeah, do you want to just leave lawful stuff maybe to next week?
I could leave it till next week, to be honest.
We're 10 minutes and we're still not done with criminal.
I mean, if you guys are fine with that, I could do that, and we could do sort of a part 2. Obviously, not next week actually, because we have a spotlight next week. But starting of November, that's it. Starting of November, we could do lawful RP. I didn't realize it'd be this long, but oh well.
Well, I do like to talk.
What about you, Heather? Do you have any ideas on why there's a downfall to criminal guilds, or, you know, people role-playing criminals?
Well, I think I will be looking at the general points of guilds breaking down as well. Like it's I think that guilds breaking down and also groups breaking down, it all comes down to miscommunication, or to just having no communication at all. Like if you have like just every time only yourself online in the guild, that is no fun. Like guilds are supposed, in my opinion, guilds are supposed to be playing together. Okay, supposed. It's probably not the right words to say, but more to point the guilds in the right direction. Like if a guild role plays together, they get a bit more maybe known by reputation. And if they don't have that, then the guild will probably never recruit any new people. The guild will never grow bigger, and it will always be the same people who are always role playing together.
Yeah.
Or not, exactly, and if you're always role playing with the same people, you're going to find that you'll hit a wall of where your character can go and develop, because there's only so much they can learn and do with that, you know, same group of people.
Yeah, indeed. And like I said, communication. If you just communicate with other people, also with the people outside the guild or people inside the guild, you can always try and make up for more roleplay content. Like, if you don't do that, like you just said, whoever you are, sorry, I don't know your name really in my head. Yeah, then you just walk into you just get into a wall, and the wall will not break then.
All right. Yeah. Let's move on to the last. Well, I'll say not the last question, since we had questions for both, which I'll add on to this for now. But do you think there are any gaps or missing elements that could be explored with Criminal RP on the realm? Do you think there's stuff that aren't often, looked into at all?
Deserters, people, because it's a crime. People who deserted from the military, and the consequences of that is something that
I did that.
Well, fine, shit all over
Yeah.
what I've just said.
No, but you're right there. Rarely anyone does that. But I'll explain how I did that quickly. I had a Night Elf who was in the SI7, and he deserted it because he didn't want to work for the Alliance, or rather, he wanted to work with his kin more so than the Alliance. So he just kind of ditched it. He faked his death and everything, which had consequences because there was like some investigations into it, because the body they found didn't exactly match him after further investigations. It led up to a few months of chasing. There was wanted posters towards the end of it. He was found and eventually blown up by the SI7, but he was killed. But it was fun to roleplay throughout it though. It that whole hiding, laying low aspect to it. Well, do you have anything else you want to add on? Any
No,
gaps or missing elements? All right.
Nothing else for you to shit on. Thank you very much.
Do you need a hug? We can hug it out.
Yeah, please.
Cass or Heather, do you think there's any aspects of Criminal RP that isn't explored often?
Well, the thing is, I don't like I already said in the
You
earlier,
haven't done it as much, but
but there are some things I just don't see too much. Like the thing is, I see the things of criminal roleplay as the need, like Cass said already, the unlawful. And I do roleplay a lot of Stormwind, as I have only played Alliance on the roleplay side at the moment. But yeah, the thing I have seen some thieves running around to try and mug people of their belongings, but honestly, I don't really see any elements that I'm missing from criminal roleplay. But yeah, just my view on things, because I am just not that much known in it yet.
yeah. What about you, Cass?
What's missing? I mean, I think I've seen most of the things that I can imagine being attempted, or even successfully or unsuccessfully. It's a little hard to say, because I don't really know where the border between legal and illegal actually goes. Sure, you know it for murder and these things, but at some point, like, is it illegal to ride your horse too fast? I don't know how far.
Oh man, there's a whole
Yeah.
can of worms.
Yeah.
Is
But
there a
yeah,
speed limit on horses?
I think the really evident criminal aspects have been represented quite well, and are still thieving, murderers, assassins, maybe deserters, I don't know. But you've had like these ideas come to mind, and you kind of know that's not okay, right? So I'd like to see someone be very creative with it. Maybe actually, let's say a location where forbidden knowledge of magic is suddenly gathered. Something like that. Some guild that dwells with this.
Magical criminals.
Yeah, magical criminals, but not in the sense that, I'm going to summon a demon in the middle of the city, but more like
Stealing artifacts.
smart, dark
Yeah.
market, like, people reaching out to mages, like, hey, you want to learn a cool fireball? It's green, It's something like that, but not completely magical evil, like, because you see that in cults, but more like illegal from perspectives that that they're selling things they shouldn't, they're teaching things they shouldn't. There's literature there that shouldn't be there. Stuff like that. Maybe something like that would be cool to see if that works.
They're teaching about flat Azeroth. They're a bunch of flat Azerothers.
Yeah, possibly.
All right. Looking at the next questions I had for both, I think I'll fall into the hero complex for now and finish the other two questions on lawful. But
That works.
you often collide with that hero complex in villainous roleplay, where the villain can't ever win. There always has to be good that prevails, and whilst I mean it's fair to have that, and it should equally be fair for the criminal to sometimes come out on top, which creates this more interesting turn of events where it can go further down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I said earlier on, long term, that I think that the good guys will always win. They should do is it's that kind of setting. It doesn't really sell. It doesn't really do well with the bad guys winning long term, and it's also not really viable to do because there's so much that a bad guy would do that would change a lot of things that don't get changed by good guys winning. If you know what I mean, good guys winning just keeps the status quo. But equally, during a storyline, particularly a long-running storyline, there should definitely be give and take in the bad guys getting the occasion one up. Not just because it's fair, because it's boring as shit if the good guy just steamrolls everything. It's just fucking dull. It does not make for good storytelling.
Yeah.
If the hero is just an untouchable badass.
Yeah. What do you two think about the whole hero complex? Heather and Cass.
Well, then I should go first again.
Yeah.
Well, myself, I did not yet get thrust into this kind of events too much, but I did get it twice. I could tell you about it, but yeah, I think that the thing will be getting pretty long then. My answer. But one thing I would surely say is that I was thrust into one of such events. I was seen as the villain, as I was doing things that they were not allowed to do. I got busted, and let's just say this way, my character, or at least it ended for me in a bad ending, but it also did leave an unsatisfactory feeling for me.
Yeah.
So, yes, the hero normally always wins, but it's in my opinion, I like it also sometimes when the evil guy wins, when the evil prevails.
Yeah. Let me also add on top of that, when evil wins, I want it to win in sort of well, I say criminal, not evil, because evil can be entirely different. Legion's evil, but criminal roleplay. It can be interesting to let them win if they win it in a way that they also outsmart the law, outsmart whatever person is, contradicting them.
You also said that a few times.
It's more interesting that way as well if you play it that well, but obviously it comes down to the individual roleplay. I have nothing more to add. It's just I'd like to see interesting twists with it personally.
Well, one of the great things that Katie has done with the Oath has always been that if someone in character means figures shit out and can nail it on Theoden, she has always been prepared to just end his shit.
Oh yeah, he's gonna die.
he won't die. It's just
He's
that
gonna get it on the neck. It's just gonna mean something because it's been like 6 years in the making.
Yeah, just nobody's done it yet.
Nobody's done it yet, no.
Nobody's managed to pin shit on him because.
But we will literally cook him one day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already eating your guild leader right now. It's quite delicious.
It's a bit gamey, but yeah.
What about you, Cass? What do you think of the whole hero complex?
Definitely something that's there. Of course, we reference back to this very often, that the world is such that good wins, and I think that's a very big factor. Then there's the human factor. if you're unlucky, someone really wants to win, someone really wants to see you fail, then that can also be quite tedious and turn out difficult. I mean, all role play is like about communication. You have to communicate so that both parts understand where something is heading, and that not someone ends up in a situation where, oh, I'm supposed to die now, but I don't want that, and then it's difficult. But if we disregard that obvious thing, because you guys kind of pointed that out, that clash, there's also from the experience I've had when people have tried to do something criminal around where I've been. For instance, if I look back on the days when I was in the military guild, we were in a garrison, and we had people trying to steal things from it or something like that. It's very difficult for them to sort of think out a plan that would work and not get busted. And that comes from real life. Like, you're used to a society that's modeled to be difficult for criminals, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if I am to steal a car tomorrow, holy crap, like, I don't know where to start with that. You're gonna break the window and get caught. So the really good criminals, they have a whole different mindset. But if you're not a criminal, you don't have that reference, you don't have the ideas, and then your roleplay kind of becomes, in a way, sometimes that if you try to pull off something complicated, like infiltrate a garrison, you don't think of all the aspects of a garrison, but the other people might catch you on it and say, oh, mistake, we saw you, you're screwed. It's very easy to be trapped like that. So it's always, it's a difficult thing to relate to, even if you like it. It's tricky, and you can't expect from people, let's say you're sneaking into the garrison and suddenly you're in front of me. Well, now there's two options here. Either I will catch you because you didn't check that corner, you didn't emote it or whatever, or I'll be stupid and you'll go around. But then you're kind of requesting me to be stupid. Is that okay? Which is okay in that situation? And sometimes that will also be, I think, a big factor of why criminals don't get away with it. One way around it is to say, it happened. You don't role play it out. It happened during the night. Maybe not as fun, but I think if you want to start off something criminal, that might be also problematic.
Yeah.
So aside from what you got, because I don't have much to add on the hero complex, but I think this also comes into that, and which inherently makes it very difficult to be on that end of the law, right? If you're trying to interact with people.
It's a problem in a lot of situations, and I'll add it more so for the next conversation. Maybe we'll have the same guest, maybe we'll have a new one, who knows. Because I did remember having some SI7 role players wanting to do law part of it.
We can take Steve out.
Yeah, we'll be up, Steve. Go away, Steve.
Fine. God.
It's not just a hero complex, though. Before you guys think I'm always, trashing on heroes and stuff, it does sometimes happen with the villains where they just can't accept consequences and they just want to see the world burn,
Yes, it's another reason why criminal guilds fail, because they when the realization hits that, oh shit, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah, it's not going to work. You're going to lose at some point. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much criminal roleplay you can do that doesn't necessarily set you up against other people.
Yeah.
You could do criminal themed roleplay that serves your faction. I mean, if you were privateers, I know we're going to discuss pirate stuff another time, but if you're doing piracy, but you're just raiding Alliance shipping routes, Horde's not going to give a flying fuck.
Yeah.
They're going to let you carry on, crack on, do your thing. Go nuts.
Pirates are a good example of that. Alright. I mean, if no one else has anything else to add, we'll end it there.
Do some plugs.
Yep.
Do any of our guests want to plug their guilds or their any communities or anything else?
I mean, I plug Oath of Silver, but I mean, you're here and you're the GM for Oath of Silver, so
And that's awkward.
Yeah, I'm like,
So just be
this is a bit masturbatory, so I'm gonna stop.
I heard Fiorlane joined the Alliance.
What did you do to me?
Do any of you want to plug your guilds or anything?
What do you mean plug guilds? You mean like
Just mention
Advertise.
Advertise, basically.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, we Dalaran Intelligence. I can tell quickly what it is, and maybe people will be interested. So we're a current Tor guild. That's an intelligence agency. So it's a / there, based in Dalaran, and we're a bit of a more aggressive current intelligence gathering initiative, something like the SI7 for Dalaran. So that sounds, interesting, and people who like role playing around magic, then definitely, look us up on the forums or Argent archives. Contact me as well for any information. So,
yeah, if I will plug my guild as well, then my guild, as you can see, is called the Sons of Mithril. We are an active mercenary themed guild. We do mercenary roleplay with focusing on small one-time contracts, whether they be bounty hunting, armored escorts, local defense requests, movement of goods, and so on. And if we're not role-playing in events, we like to hang out in the Golden Keg in the Dwarven District of Stormwind. If you ever have questions or want to come up and roleplay with us, you will probably find us there, in the Golden Keg.
Alright. Let me just pull up my own plugs. Thank you again for watching. If you'd like to click that follow button to, be notified of the stream coming up, please do so. Obviously this will be put up on YouTube as well, so if you want to follow there, that'd be great as well. It will be uploaded onto the Discord channel, which you can join below. And again, I forgot to put the AD content creators channel down there, but I'll remind myself.
Week by week, you let me down.
Hey, that's my thing, okay? I'm a disappointment. Yeah, the Fusecraft Discord's down there. Obviously, you'll be notified of AD talks and then other random streams I do now and again, but I've been lazy lately. AD creators is more for Argent Dawn artists, music creators, streamers like Theolane. Writers.
Stream some things. Sometimes.
Yeah.
There is the link to the AD Creators Discord.
It's a good place to go if you're also looking to commission from someone. You might find an artist there. Otherwise, that's it really. So thank you for joining us, guys. I'm sorry to cut it short, but I promise we'll do Lawful RP right after.
It would take us another hour
Yeah,
to do Lawful
it would.
RP.
I didn't think it through. That's my fault. We'll do Lawful RP for November now, because next week we're doing a spotlight with the Myrmidon, which is my guild,
awesome.
but we're doing it with the guild leader. I'm not the guild leader. Alright. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Ciao for now.
yeah, thank you.
See you then.